Hello, good evening, and welcome to Varsity Maine Live from the Portland Press Herald. I'm Travis Lazarzik. Tonight I am joined by my friends Will Kramlich from the Sun Journal and from the Portland Press Herald, Steve Craig. Our guest tonight has been the head coach at Leavitt football since 2002. He's won 3 state championships, 2009 in Class B and in Class C in 2013, and most recently in 2019. He's coached in numerous Lobster Bowls, and his team right now is 6-0 in the top seed in Class C South with a bye this weekend in the first round of the playoffs. Joining us tonight, Coach Mike Hathaway. Coach, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Coach, your team kind of got off to a late start through no fault of your own. Just a couple of your first opponents had to deal with some COVID issues. And what was it like trying to keep your team sharp, just being unable to play until week 3 of the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little tough, but I think the good thing was we had a lot to work on, right? Because we didn't have a season last year. So there were so many things to put in and do that we really didn't have a problem keeping the practices kind of fresh and, like keeping the kids engaged in practice. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been, I guess.
Last year not having the linemen, in pads and stuff, how much did it take those guys to get, back into the swing of things this year?
Yeah, it's tough, but both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, you haven't blocked or tackled anybody in a long time, right? So that was kind of the skill that we really worked on a ton in our preseason. Once we could get pads on, and that we really spent a lot of time on those first 2 weeks when we didn't have opponents was to make sure we were good in those areas. And our linemen have done a great job. They've been fantastic this year, and they've gotten better and better every week. So they're working hard. Lights are going out on me again.
Gives me time to get my question all queued up for him.
Yeah.
Mike, I know coaches hate to look ahead, but so far this season, the one really competitive game you've had is with Cape Elizabeth. And it would appear that, you're the 1 and 2 seeds. If the seeds hold, you play Cape Elizabeth again, it would be for the South final. What will be 2 or 3 keys to that game from your perspective?
I probably haven't looked far enough ahead yet to know that. But if you go based on what it was last time, like, Nick Laughlin and McDuffie, the quarterback, like those guys they're amazing football players. So obviously it starts with them. The quarterback's a good runner and a good thrower. Laughlin can run the ball. He can catch the ball. So you have to be able to defend that. But they're very well schemed. Like, Coach Green does a great job there. Defensively, they present some problems with what they do. They obviously have some good personnel on that side of the ball as well. And that's a team that plays real hard all the time too. So I think it's, anytime you play those guys, it's always about tackling their athletes. It's always about, limiting your turnovers and mistakes because it's hard to drive the ball far against a team like that. So you need to make a few big plays and you really need to limit, some mistakes and some big plays from them to kind of get ahead of them and hopefully play from the front a little bit.
Mike, Steve asked you to look ahead a week or two. I'm going to ask you to look ahead like a year or two here. With Maine high school football, the expansion of 8-man football looks like it's going to continue, and 4 classes is probably untenable. Do you feel like Maine should switch back to 3 classes for 11-man? Because it would probably certainly affect your team. You guys have been on the cusp of B and C enough as it is.
Yeah, and to be honest, I wouldn't be worried about our team. If we're in B or C or whatever, it's we're going to be fine. So I think one of the things that you just have to be cautious of if you're going to go from 4 to 3 classes is there's a lot of teams who sit on those enrollment bubbles who are new programs or recovering programs, and then they're faced with the decision of can I bump up a class and play when I've only been a 500 or less team for quite a few years in the class I'm in, or do I need to go to 8-man? And so if you do go to 3 classes, you might see a bigger exodus of teams to 8-man because they feel like, if we get moved up, maybe that's not the right fit for us anymore. So I would hate to see that. You really don't know until the end of the year and people kind of decide what they're going to do, who's going to be where. So it's tough to predict anything, but, I don't know. I mean, I think, we got to settle this out over the next 2 years, who's going to be 8-man, what those kind of parameters are going to be and what's not, and then find out who the 11-man teams are, who the 8-man teams are, and figure out the best way to do it. I'd be concerned less about what classes teams are in and more about what schedules they're playing in the regular season. That needs to be the thing to me that's looked at the most. Like, I've always been a proponent of you should play the playoffs in whatever class that you're in. that seems fair by enrollment and what they do in the other sports. But during the regular season, let's get some good matchups and let some teams play each other. Like, we'll go play a Bonnie Eagle or a TA or, Oxford Hills is a pretty local game. That'd be a fun game. And I'm sure there's other teams that would go around and do some of that too. And you could get a lot of great local matchups that, maybe are more competitive. And, then in the playoffs, go to your classes and sort it out that way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, actually, Mike. And I just wanted to ask you in a very general sense, because with football, it seems like it's really difficult to rebuild a program. You've been able to develop a very successful program that stood the test of time at Leavitt. What would be a couple of nuggets of wisdom, for that coach who's taking over a program that's maybe on the cusp of, we are having a hard time getting enough kids out, or we can't win games?
Yeah, I mean, step one, you got to surround yourself with some good people around you, because you can't coach those things yourself and get them back yourself. And I think that's what happens a lot is you get a younger guy or a coach who's been around for a while, and he's going to come back and try to revive a program, and they might not have a great staff around them. And, if you're playing at some of the higher levels of football, it's awful tough to do everything yourself. So I think that's step one is, find some good people that can teach and coach and do some of that. And then you've got to get down in your youth program and start to build it from the ground up. And, I think the thing, when I first came to Leavitt, it wasn't in awful shape, but it wasn't in great shape either. They had a couple of down years. You can't go to the youth program right away. You have to manage what you have in front of you first. So you have to take whatever that situation is and figure out what's the best for that group right now. And then you got to set your sights on the bigger picture and say, all right, what do I need to do in this youth program? What's going on there? But until you really get in and get the kids engaged on what's going on, you're not going to generate any kind of excitement or buy-in. So you have to figure out kind of what the root of some of the issues might have been, and then, try to make it a place where everybody wants to be and be enthusiastic and get some people around who can be enthusiastic and know what they're, know what they're teaching. And, then it kind of falls into place, but it's not easy. I mean, you see it all over. It's never easy to go somewhere and take something that hasn't been great and make it great all of a sudden. Like, it doesn't happen very often. So it's a process, and you got to have an AD that's willing to stick with you too.
Right.
Mike, being at Libby Field in Turner last weekend, great atmosphere. What's that like to have the fans at those games and just the energy, the team and you guys get from those kind of fans?
It's the best. It's why you do it. It's part of it. I mean, there's tons of other reasons, but game night at home is one of the best experiences that there is. And, our guys have put in enough work that they've created an environment where people care a lot about football and they want to come watch us play. And the kids come and get excited about it. There's the student sections up there. There's no track, so everybody's right on top of the field. It's just it's something that kids want to do. Like, they want to be there. And, really it's been created by the kids that we've had. I've been here and I've had great coaches, but they're the ones that have been willing to put in the work and do it. So those guys have built it. All those guys that have played over the course of the years, this is what they left behind. So it's awesome. It's fun. It's feeding off that crowd is great.
Okay. Coach, that'll do it from our end with you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, hey, I got to shout out one time. I promised them Leavitt Field Hockey, big win, 3-2 today over Freiburg. Megan Nason, Kara Jordan, Cad McDowell in my homeroom were great today. And Will, as you mentioned, Josh Creashan killed it on the anthem at Libby Field the other night. One of the coolest all-time moments. Rocked it on the electric guitar. It was awesome. So
there you go. Congratulations, Leavitt.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks.
Leavitt head coach Mike Hathaway. All right, we will now move on to Athletes of the Week, starting with Bonnie Eagle cross-country runner Delaney Hessler. She was the only girl to break 19 minutes in any of the three classes to the South Regionals. She crossed the finish line in 18:52.82. And Steve, the Bonnie Eagle girls are the favorites to repeat as Class A champions on Saturday in Belfast.
Yep, that would be their third straight. It looks like it could be the boys' race. Looks like from a team perspective, it'll be quite a battle with Portland looking for its first title since '78. Brunswick, maybe the favorite, has never won a state team title, and some other good teams in the mix too. And then I'll be fascinated to see how fast can Orono's Ruth White, a sophomore, run. She already holds the course record there, and if you break a course record that was once held by, well, actually the course record was held by a young woman from New Hampshire, but she also broke the state record that was once held by Sophie Matson. So that's saying something. So
Yeah.
should be a great day. It's always such a colorful event too, you know, all those different uniforms and maybe a little bit of color still left in the trees. Cross country is a pretty cool event to see live.
Yeah, let's hope the weather's conducive to getting some good low runs in there. So, moving on to Mountain Valley football, Robert Levier. Robert, I hope I got your last name right, but you intercepted 5 passes, returned 2 for touchdowns, and added 3 offensive touchdowns in a 58-22 8-man small school quarterfinal win over Booth Bay. From Biddeford Field Hockey, CC Keller in the 5-2 Class A South Prelim win over Sanford. She scored 3 goals to set the Biddeford single-season goals record. Then she had the game-winning goal in overtime and assisted on the other 2 in a 3-2 win over Gorham in the quarterfinals. She now has 30 goals on the season. Hayden Fletcher from Monmouth Boys Soccer, he scored 5 goals in the second half of a 6-0 win over Mountain Valley in a Class C South prelim game Friday, then scored the game winner in a 2-0 win over Halldale in the quarterfinals on Monday. Hayden, if you remember earlier this year, scored his 100th career goal. Mountain Valley Field Hockey, Autumn Freeman, she scored 6 goals in number 5 Mountain Valley 7-0 win over Mattanacook in the opening round of the Class C North Field Hockey playoffs Friday. Then she scored twice on Tuesday, the first to tie the game, and then the game winner on a sudden death penalty corner in overtime in a 2-1 win over 4th-seeded Orono in the quarterfinals. Will, what can you tell us about this Mountain Valley Field Hockey team?
Talking to head coach Melissa Forbes kind of in the middle toward the later part of the season, she said going in, they were young and kind of weren't sure what to expect, but they've really come on strong in the second half of the season into the postseason. And Freeman's kind of been their star player to get those big goals, do what the team needs to get those big wins. Just the other day on the road in Orono, a team they don't usually play, long drive, and she gets the goal on the penalty corner in overtime. She's been huge for them this season.
Okay. In Leavitt cross-country runner Logan Ouellette, he won the Class B South Boys regional title Saturday, running the fastest time of the day in any class in 16 minutes, 44.64 seconds. His first time going under 17 minutes. He'll be among the favorites at the Class B boys race this weekend. Owen Dunn from Maranacook football, he ran for 377 yards and 4 touchdowns in the Black Bears' 56-28 win at Old Orchard Beach Saturday in the 8-man football small school South playoffs. Dunn scored on 3 consecutive carries in the fourth quarter to put the game out of reach. I was at this game. Old Orchard Beach had just cut it to within 4, 32-28, and Dunn just kind of took over the game for the Black Bears. Scored on a short drive, scored on the first play after an Old Orchard turnover. Old Orchard fumbles the kickoff. He scores again, and the close game is suddenly out of reach. Maranacook's going to have a tough game going to undefeated Telstar this weekend. But Telstar only beat Maranacook 14-12 in the regular season, and Maranacook coach Jordan DeMillo told me they were missing some key guys that game, so wouldn't be shocked to see Maranacook go to Bethel and pull off the upset. In Winthrop Field Hockey, Maddie Perkins, she scored 2 goals in a 4-0 victory over Maranacook in a Class C South quarterfinal game. And then finally, well, not finally, we have a couple more after this. Emily Harper from Maranacook girls soccer, she scored 4 goals and had 4 assists in a 12-0 win over Spruce Mountain in a Class C South girls soccer quarterfinal. Ainsley Christensen of Gorham volleyball, she had 3 kills and 4 aces in a 3-set quarterfinal victory over Sanford Noble. Parker Higgins from Lawrence football, he ran for 287 yards on 24 carries and scored all 6 of his team's touchdowns in a 42-38 win over Messalowski. And now finally, Ari Ristad from Yarmouth Field Hockey, she scored 2 goals in the second half, the last with 3:53 remaining to lift the Clippers to a 2-1 win over Freeport in the Class B South quarterfinals. So a lot of playoff action in those athletes of the week. We're going to have a lot of playoff action to talk about in a little bit with games of the week. But first, let's get to the Varsity Maine polls. They're available on varsitymaine.com. You can check them out. Big thanks to Bob Obey from the Press Herald for collecting all our votes and making sure we get those in and putting them together. We'll start with boys soccer, where Lewiston remains number 1 with 6 first-place votes, followed by number 2 Wyndham, 3 Yarmouth, 4 Falmouth, and 5 Camden Hills. I believe, Steve, you saw Falmouth drop a game today in the playoffs to number 6 Marshwood.
Well, yeah, and Marshwood was the higher seeded team. They got to play them in South Berwick on the natural grass field. Marshwood won 3-2 on 2 late goals by Declan Fitzgerald, one of which was a very pretty goal. So Marshwood moves on, and Marshwood is one of those teams that we were saying in the last couple of weeks that Class A South is going to be knockdown, drag out. Falmouth was missing a couple of players, including their leading scorer, Mason Farr. That's tough. Tough to have happen at this time of the year. Also, earlier in the week, I saw Scarborough, which had been ranked first or second in that poll most of the year, losing penalty kicks to Gorham, which I put Gorham in my picks this week, but for the first time in weeks. So there you go. I mean, a number 7 took down the number 2. So watch out for Gorham. They're not going to be an easy out.
Definitely. Okay, and girls soccer, Wyndham stays number 1 with 6 first-place votes, followed by Bangor, Falmouth, Scarborough, and Cape Elizabeth. Scarborough girls lost today 2-1 to Thornton Academy. So the matchup that we all kind of thought we'd see in the playoffs, Wyndham-Scarborough, who didn't meet in the regular season, is just not going to happen because Wyndham's going to be hosting Thornton Academy this weekend. So much like the boys, guys, the girls' side in Class A South is wide open.
Yeah, it's the wonder of playoffs, and I think, who knows, maybe this year without them has just heightened it even more. Because certainly the couple of games I saw the last 2 nights, the players were really going hard and clean as well, I would say. It wasn't dirty by any means. I don't want to imply that. But they were just playing hard, and they played to the end. And even tonight, after Falmouth fell behind 3-1, they got another goal, just to make the last 2 minutes, nail biting. So
you can tell everybody missed playoffs last year.
Yeah.
All right. And field hockey, number 1, Skowhegan, no shock there. They have gotten 5 first-place votes. Number 2, Cheverus picks up that other first-place votes, followed by Scarborough, York, and Biddeford. Will, have you had a chance to get out to any field hockey playoff games?
I have not. Been in the office more than at the games. But just some of those teams that are on that list. I've heard a lot about them. Winthrop is in our Sun Journal coverage area, and they've been kind of world beaters all year in Class C. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone can knock them out. But I've heard great things about Lawrence. It's great to see Biddeford doing well. I used to work down that way. Then York, Scarborough, Skowhegan, those teams are always up there. And Cape Elizabeth, great season in Class B South. So yeah, just like we were talking about with soccer, all these field hockey teams, some big games, but also some great performances by some dominant teams.
Sure, I didn't know you were an indoor cat now, so I apologize.
Right.
Finally, football poll, Thornton Academy with 7 first-place votes. That's all of them. Then Oxford Hills, Portland, Wyndham, and then Bangor back into the top 5, coming off a big win, 37-30 over Bonnie Eagle last week. So we kind of wondered, Steve, if Bangor was for real, and then they get absolutely shellacked at Thornton Academy. So probably not. But then they pull off a nice win over a good Bonnie Eagle team.
Yeah, that's great for them. And especially the way they've been able to rebound, because, I mean, it can't be fun or easy to come back after losing by 71 points, and they were just blitzed in that game. It couldn't have happened faster or more dramatically or just more. It was awful. And good for them. They're back at it. And, Bonnie Eagle now with 3 losses. I didn't really look at the standings, but they kind of need a win this week.
Yeah, they're kind of looking at maybe going on the road even in the first round. So
right. And of course, Scarborough hasn't even played the last 2 weeks. They get a chance to knock Thornton Academy down a peg. That would be a big upset to me. But maybe again, if they haven't played, they should be well rested, I guess.
And Will, Oxford Hills is just kind of sitting there quietly at number 2.
Yeah, and they had a great shot against Thornton Academy at home in South Paris, and just turnovers killed them, and they still only lost by 1 score. So that's a game that obviously Oxford Hills wants a rematch. I bet Thornton wouldn't mind it, but Oxford Hills has Bangor this week. And those 2 teams are pretty much playing for that number 2 seed in Class A football. So that'll be a huge one for them, heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I don't think they will, but if Bangor beats Oxford Hills, I think we have to say yes, they're for real, because Oxford Hills really impressed me despite the 6 turnovers when I saw them play Thornton. they run to the ball and they hit, and they have players that can make plays, and if they cut down the turnovers in half, they probably win that game. So.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at some games of the week. We have so much playoffs going on, just about every sport's into the playoffs now. We talked about the state cross country meets Saturday at Belfast. We have state championships for volleyball this weekend. We know the B match is going to be Yarmouth versus Cape Elizabeth. Cape Elizabeth went and knocked off that really strong Gardner team playing in its first year of varsity play tonight. I haven't seen any results from some of the Class A matches, but I'm sure we'll be hearing of those soon.
Yeah, I can update you on that if you don't mind me stepping on your toes there.
No,
It will be
please do.
Scarborough against Biddeford in the state final. Scarborough took a 4-set battle with Gorham that finished up just a little bit before we went on the air. I don't have much in the way of details, but it sounded like the 4th set at least was very close, and that Gorham had some game points, but we're not able to convert.
Sure. In boys soccer, we've talked a lot about the tightness in Class A South, but Will, I want to ask you, there's a team in Class C South that's kind of their number 1 seed, but not many people really talk about them, Mount Abram. What can you tell us about the Roadrunners quietly doing their thing up in the mountains?
Well, I mean, the thing is they play way up there, and so, it's hard to get coverage up there, but, head coach Darren Allen has just a program where just every year they bring new kids in, and, he's got a great system. The kids know how to play soccer. His son, Ian Allen, is a senior goalie. He's been, he was a starter since his sophomore year, I believe. They got different guys that can score the ball, great possession, great touch. So it'll be interesting. I'd like to see them go up against some of those, WMC team and see how they match up. But as far as, the MWC, the MVC teams, they've had some close games, but they know how to win those games. They're a really good program, and they're finally getting to show it on a little maybe broader scale.
Sure. And in girls' side in Class C South, we've already had a couple upsets. Number 1, Halldale lost today. Number 8, Waynfleet. I guess I don't know if it's an upset when you lose to Waynfleet, just because they always kind of come into the tournament with a lower seed and they're kind of an unknown. And then Old Orchard Beach knocked off number 2 undefeated Oak Hill this afternoon. So that tournament's suddenly wide open, guys.
Yeah, and that was
wow, that's good. Good for Old Orchard Beach too.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a sport they've had a lot of success in previously. So good for them.
Yeah, they've been.
Go ahead, Will.
And if I'm wrong, Old Orchard Beach veterans or alumni, you can, my email's readily available.
They've been down for a few years. They had a really good team the first year at the old Journal Tribune, and then they had some down years. But Heath Lloyd's got that program back up, and that was an Oak Hill team that didn't give up a goal all regular season, and now they're out of the tournament in their first game. So that's a huge one for OOB.
Yeah. All right. In Class B and C in football, we get going this weekend with quarterfinals. The 8-man in both large and small are already on to the regional semifinals. A couple games I'm interested in there is in the North in the large school division. We have Mount Desert Island coming to Waterville tomorrow afternoon at 2 to beat the weather that they're expecting on Saturday. These teams played an overtime game a couple weeks ago, so I expect another good one there. And then the game I already mentioned earlier in the South small division, we have Marina Cook going to Telstar. That was a 14-12 game in the regular season. So I think that could be a good one. Are there any football playoff games either of you guys are looking forward to this weekend?
For our coverage area, Diego and Mountain Valley play in 8-man small school South Division, and they've never played a football playoff game before. And those are, 2 longtime rivals in other sports. So that'll be interesting to see how those two teams go against each other.
Yeah, and another 8-man game in the large school north, Camden Hills Morse.
Right.
They played twice. They each won on the other team's field. They're both high-scoring teams, so maybe bring an extra blanket because that game's going to last a long while. You'll get chilly. Class B, Travis, you mentioned this in your notebook earlier today. They would appear to be lopsided games or lopsided matchups based on the regular season. But number 5, South Portland, going back to Noble, where they won 30-14. I don't know who's going to win. I think I don't even know who I picked this week, but no, I did see the first matchup. Noble really shot itself in the foot right from the beginning of the game, and then right at the end of the half when they let in a touchdown they shouldn't have, and there was also a pick six and a snap over the head. Basically, I think everything except for a field goal that South Portland got was essentially here we'll either take it and run it in for a touchdown or start on our 10-yard line. So, if Noble can avoid doing that, that could be a really tight game down to the wire, because I think they're very quality very similar.
Yeah. And in Class C South, the 4-5 game between York and Wells is going to be a good one, I would think, because they're old rivals. It was a York won 35-28 last week in the regular season finale. I imagine, two teams with such a history against each other are going to really get at it.
Yeah, and that was crazy because Wells led 28-6 in the third quarter. And then, and I honestly don't know what happened, but, they were playing at Wells, and to be up by 3 scores in the second half and then give it up like that, it speaks that York does have playmakers. And I got to imagine that was part of it. But yeah, so that kind of makes me wonder whether there was some fluky stuff that led to Wells getting the lead, or maybe it was the reverse, and that's why York ended up winning.
Yeah, sometimes all it takes is one fluky play to just completely change momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for this week on Varsity Maine Live. We urge you to check out varsitymaine.com and all our websites. Check out the Facebook page, check out our Twitter feed, get up to date on any high school field hockey, soccer, football, volleyball, cross country. A lot going on this week. We'll be back next week to kind of break it all down and look at more playoffs. So for Steve, for Will, for Coach Hathaway, I'm Travis. Thanks for joining us.